The great crystal hall stretched out like a frozen ocean. 47 different alien species sat in their special seats, each one designed for their unique bodies. Some floated in glass tanks filled with strange gases. Others perched on metal branches that looked like twisted trees. A few moved around on mechanical legs that clicked against the smooth floor. Captain Jake Morrison sat in a simple chair made for humans. He wore his dark blue uniform with 3 gold stripes on each shoulder. His brown hair was cut short and neat. His green eyes looked calm as he watched the aliens around him whisper to each other in dozens of different languages. Next to him sat Admiral Susan Carter. She was older than Jake, with gray hair pulled back tight. Her uniform had more gold decorations than his. She checked her watch and then looked at the tall alien standing at the center of the room. General Ben Rodriguez sat on Jake's other side. He was a big man with dark skin and kind eyes. His uniform was army green instead of navy blue. All 3 humans looked relaxed, like they were waiting for a boring meeting to start instead of facing judgment from the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The alien at the center was named Zekthara. He belonged to the Vorthon Empire, which controlled 20 star systems. His body looked like a tall gray tree with 4 arms instead of branches. His skin had the texture of old leather, and his eyes glowed with a soft purple light. When he moved, his 4 arms waved around like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. "Humans of the planet Earth," Zekthara began. His voice came out through a machine that translated his words into human language. "You stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Order." Jake yawned. He covered his mouth with his hand, but several aliens saw it anyway. They made angry sounds in their own languages. Zekthara's purple eyes grew brighter. "You have spread across space without permission. You have built colonies on worlds that were not given to you. You have traded with species that were forbidden to you. You have refused to follow the laws that govern all civilized beings in this galaxy." Admiral Carter looked at her fingernails like she was checking if they needed to be cut. "Worst of all," Zekthara continued, his forearms moving faster now, "you have claimed that your species deserves equal status with races that have ruled the stars for thousands of years. Your kind has existed in space for less than 100 years. You are children playing with toys you do not understand." General Rodriguez scratched his chin and looked around the room. He counted how many guards were standing at each door. There were 12 doors, and 3 guards at each one. All the guards carried energy weapons that glowed with the same purple light as Zekthara's eyes. "Therefore," Zekthara said, raising all 4 arms above his head, "the Galactic Council hereby declares war upon the human species. You will surrender all your colonies. You will return to your home world. You will never again travel beyond your own star system. If you refuse, we will destroy every human ship, every human station, and every human settlement we find." The 47 alien species began to make noise. Some clicked their claws together. Others made deep humming sounds. A few flashed different colors like living rainbows. They were all celebrating what they thought would be humanity's defeat. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. He was not very tall, and he looked small next to the huge aliens around him. But when he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the crystal hall. "That's it?" he asked. The celebration stopped. The hall became so quiet that everyone could hear the soft humming of the air machines. Zekthara's 4 arms froze in the air. "What did you say?" I said. "That's it?" Jake repeated. He sounded like someone who had just been told a joke that wasn't very funny. "You called us all the way out here across half the galaxy just for this?" The alien with the biggest tank of gas began to bubble angrily. The one with mechanical legs started clicking them faster against the floor. The rainbow-colored ones flashed red, which meant they were upset. Admiral Carter stood up next to Jake. She took a small device from her belt and pressed a button on it. "Execute checkmate," she said into the device. "What is the meaning of this?" Zekthara demanded. His purple eyes were now bright enough to light up the area around him. Jake smiled. It was not a mean smile, but it was not friendly either. "The meaning is simple. You just declared war on the wrong species." Far away, on a space station called Deep Watch, a human woman named Lisa Parker was pretending to be a simple trade clerk. She had been doing this job for 15 years. Every day she helped alien merchants buy and sell goods across 12 star systems. What the aliens didn't know was that Lisa was actually a colonel in Earth's intelligence service. When her communicator buzzed with Admiral Carter's message, Lisa stopped pretending. She pressed a series of buttons on her computer and suddenly every trade route in her sector shut down. Ships that had been carrying food stopped moving. Stations that provided fuel went dark. The carefully balanced system of buying and selling that kept billions of aliens alive came to a complete stop. On the mining world of Kepler-7, a man named Ryan Mitchell got the same message. For 8 years, he had been acting like a simple worker who fixed broken machines. The aliens thought he was just another human laborer trying to make enough money to survive. They had no idea that Ryan was a general in Earth's army, and that every mine, every factory, and every power station on Kepler-7 had been secretly modified to follow his commands. When Ryan pressed his button, the lights went out across an entire planet. This same scene played out on thousands of worlds. Humans who had been treated like servants, like workers, like second-class citizens, suddenly revealed who they really were. The galaxy's communication networks, which aliens thought they controlled, began showing the same image on every screen. It was the face of President Mary Johnson, sitting behind her desk in the White House on Earth. She was a small woman with short blonde hair and blue eyes that looked kind but determined. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "People of the galaxy," she said, "your leaders have declared war on humanity. We want you to know that we hold no anger toward you. You are not our enemies. Your governments made this choice without asking what you wanted." President Johnson folded her hands on her desk. "We also want you to know that this war is already over. For 50 years, humans have been working quietly throughout your civilizations. We have fixed your machines, grown your food, and carried your goods from world to world. We did this not because we had to, but because we wanted to help." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "Your leaders saw this as weakness. They thought we were servants who should be grateful for the chance to work for you. They were wrong. We were students, learning everything we could about how your worlds work, and now we know." Back in the Crystal Hall, Zekthara was frantically pressing buttons on his own communication device. Nothing happened. No messages went out, no calls connected. The device was completely dead. "What have you done?" he screamed. General Rodriguez stood up and stretched like he had been sitting too long. "We've been preparing for this day since the first human ship left Earth," he said. "Did you really think we would spread across the galaxy without a plan?" The aliens began to panic. Some tried to call their homeworlds. Others attempted to contact their fleets. A few even tried to activate the station's emergency systems. Nothing worked. Every piece of technology they depended on had suddenly stopped responding to their commands. Jake Morrison walked to the center of the room, right up to where Zekthara stood with his forearms shaking with rage. "You want to know the funny thing?" Jake said. "We never wanted this war. All we wanted was to be treated as equals. We would have been happy to work together, to share what we knew, to help make the galaxy a better place for everyone." He looked around at all the frightened alien faces. "But you couldn't let that happen. You had to remind us that we were the newcomers. You had to make sure we knew our place. You had to declare war." Jake smiled again, and this time it was almost sad. "Well, congratulations. You got your war. And now you're about to learn what happens when you pick a fight with a species that spent 10,000 years fighting each other, before we ever left our own planet." Admiral Carter's communicator crackled to life. A voice spoke from it, clear, enough for everyone in the hall to hear. "Admiral, this is Colonel Stone at Haven Station. All systems are secure. The galaxy is ours." The Crystal Hall fell into complete silence. Every alien species stared at the three humans standing calmly in the center of the room. Outside the great windows, the stars continued to shine, but something had changed in the galaxy. Something that none of the aliens had seen coming. Zekthara pressed more buttons on his communication device. His forearms moved faster and faster, but the screen stayed dark. No messages went through. No signals reached his fleet. The device that had connected him to his empire for 20 years was now just a piece of dead metal and plastic. "This is impossible," he whispered. His purple eyes dimmed with fear. "The Vorthan Empire controls the communication networks for this entire sector." Admiral Carter laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it was not kind either. "No, you don't. You never did. Lisa Parker has been running your networks for the past 15 years. On the space station Deepwatch, Lisa Parker was no longer pretending to be a simple trade clerk. She had removed her plain gray coveralls and now wore the dark green uniform of Earth Intelligence. Her rank insignia showed she was a lieutenant commander, not the low-level worker the aliens had thought she was. Lisa sat in front of a wall of screens that showed star maps, trade routes, and communication channels. For 15 years, she had watched information flow through the networks that connected dozens of worlds. The aliens had paid her a small salary to keep their systems running smoothly. They had no idea she was also copying every message, recording every conversation, and learning every secret their governments tried to hide. "Deep watch control to all stations." Lisa spoke into her headset. "This is Lieutenant Commander Parker. All cover identities are now terminated. Repeat, all covers are blown. Switch to military protocols immediately." Across the galaxy, her words reached hundreds of other humans who had been living double lives. On the industrial world of Titan Prime, a man named Kevin Brooks stopped fixing factory machines and revealed himself as a major in the Earth Engineering Corps. He had spent 12 years secretly installing human-made components in every major manufacturing center on the planet. With the press of a button, every factory stopped working. On the agricultural world of Green Valley, a woman named Nancy White had been growing food crops for 8 different alien species. She was known as a skilled farmer who could make anything grow in any soil. What the aliens didn't know was that Nancy was actually a captain in Earth's Agricultural Defense Unit. Every seed she had planted for the past 10 years contained genetic modifications that would make the plants respond only to human commands. Nancy pressed a switch on her hidden communicator, and suddenly crops across 12 worlds stopped growing. The food that fed billions of aliens began to wither and die. In the Crystal Hall, more aliens were trying to use their communication devices. The floating ones in their gas tanks were making bubbling sounds of panic. The mechanical-legged ones were clicking around the room in circles. The rainbow-colored ones had turned a sick yellow color that meant they were afraid. General Rodriguez walked over to a group of alien military commanders. They were tall, gray beings with scales instead, of skin and eyes like black glass. They belonged to the Kethmori warrior race, and they had never lost a battle in 300 years. "Commander Veltar," Rodriguez said to their leader, "I believe you're trying to contact your battle fleet." Veltar's scales turned dark red with anger. "Human scum, you will pay for this trickery. The Kethmori Third Fleet will arrive within the hour and destroy this station." Rodriguez smiled and shook his head. "No, they won't. Your Third Fleet is currently floating dead in space near the Proxima system. Would you like to know why?" Before Veltar could answer, Rodriguez continued. "For 6 years, a human named Tony Garcia has been working as a maintenance supervisor on your fleet's main supply base. Every time your ships came in for repairs, Tony's team installed small modifications to their power systems. Improvements, you called them. Better efficiency, longer range, more reliable operation." Rodriguez pulled out his own communicator and showed Veltar the screen. It displayed a star map with dozens of red dots scattered across several systems. Each dot represented a Kethmori warship that had suddenly lost all power. "Those improvements were actually remote control switches," Rodriguez explained. "Tony just turned off your entire fleet." On the supply base, Keth Station, Tony Garcia was no longer pretending to be a simple mechanic. He wore the blue uniform of the Earth Space Navy with the rank insignia of a lieutenant colonel. Around him, other humans were revealing their true identities as well. For 6 years, Tony had led a team of engineers who fixed alien spaceships. The aliens had been happy to hire humans for this work because humans were cheap and did good work. They never asked questions, and they always finished jobs on time. What the aliens hadn't realized was that every human repair crew was actually a military unit in disguise. Tony looked at a wall of monitors that showed the status of every ship his teams had ever worked on. Kethmori battle cruisers, Vorthan, Transport ships, Zephyrian scout vessels, and dozens of other alien craft were all displaying the same message. System locked. Human authorization required. Keth Station to Earth Command. Tony spoke into his radio. This is Colonel Garcia. All enemy fleets have been neutralized. No shots fired. Repeat, no shots fired. Back in the Crystal Hall, Jake Morrison was watching the alien representatives try to understand what was happening. Some were still pressing buttons on dead communicators. Others were whispering to each other in languages that sounded like music or grinding metal or the chirping of strange birds. You're probably wondering how this is possible, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the huge room. Let me explain it to you. He pointed to a small alien with blue skin and 6 arms who was frantically tapping on a tablet computer. Counselor Nixara, you're trying to access the central data bank of the Centauri Trade Federation. That system has been managed for the past 12 years by Dr. Ashley King. You know her as the quiet human woman who fixed your computers and organized your files. What you don't know is that Ashley is actually one of Earth's top experts in alien technology. On the trade world of New Centauri, Dr. Ashley King was sitting in the main computer center of the Centauri Trade Federation. She was a small woman with curly red hair and glasses, and for 12 years the aliens had thought she was just a helpful technician who kept their systems running. The truth was very different. Ashley had 3 advanced degrees in computer science and alien studies. She had been sent to New Centauri as part of a long-term intelligence mission. Her job was to learn everything possible about alien technology while making small improvements to their systems. Every improvement Ashley made had included hidden features, backup systems that only responded to human codes, security programs that could be controlled from Earth, communication networks that copied everything to human databases. The aliens had been so grateful for her help that they had given her access to their most secret systems. Now Ashley was using that access to shut down the economic heart of the galaxy. Bank accounts were frozen, trade agreements were canceled, supply contracts were terminated. The complex web of buying and selling that connected thousands of worlds was collapsing in real time. New Centauri Control to Earth Command, Ashley spoke into her headset. This is Dr. King. All financial systems are under our control. The galactic economy is officially closed for business. In the Crystal Hall, Jake continued his explanation. He pointed to a group of insect-like aliens who were making clicking sounds of distress. The Zephyrian Collective is trying to contact their homeworld, Jake said. They're having trouble because their entire communication network runs through relay stations that have been maintained by human technicians for the past 20 years. He gestured toward another group of aliens who were shaped like living crystals. The Xerion Assembly can't access their atmospheric control systems because those systems have been upgraded by human engineers who installed remote override capabilities. Jake walked slowly around the room, pointing out different alien species. As he spoke, the Aquatic Union can't contact their underwater cities because the deep-sea communication cables were installed by human diving teams. The Silicon Confederation can't access their quantum computers because the quantum processors were designed and built by human physicists. One by one, Jake explained how humans had quietly taken control of every important system in the galaxy. They had done it slowly, carefully, over the course of 50 years. They had been invited in as helpers and workers and fixers. The aliens had been happy to let humans do the boring, difficult work of keeping their civilizations running. Admiral Carter stepped forward and activated a large display screen that had been built into one wall of the Crystal Hall. The screen showed President Mary Johnson sitting in her office on Earth, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood the most important military and political leaders of humanity. People of the galaxy, President Johnson said. By now you understand that your government's declaration of war against humanity was a mistake. We do not wish to hurt anyone, but we will not allow ourselves to be destroyed or enslaved. The hour passed slowly in the Crystal Hall. Some aliens paced back and forth on their mechanical legs. Others floated nervously in their gas tanks, making bubbling sounds. The rainbow-colored ones kept changing colors rapidly, which meant they were very upset and confused. Zekathara had stopped trying to use his communication device. His 4 arms hung at his sides like broken branches. His purple eyes had dimmed to almost nothing. The proud leader of the Vorthan Empire looked like he had aged 100 years in the past 60 minutes. When President Johnson appeared on the screen again, every alien in the room turned to look at her. Her face was calm, but her blue eyes were hard as steel. "Your hour is up," she said simply. "We have received no word of surrender from any of your governments. Therefore, we will proceed with the next phase of our operation." The screen changed to show a view of space near the planet Vorthan Prime, the capital world of Zekthara's empire. Hundreds of ships hung motionless in the darkness. They were sleek and beautiful vessels with flowing curves and gleaming metal hulls. They had been the pride of the Vorthan fleet. Now they were floating dead, their lights dim, their engines cold. "Your fleets cannot move," President Johnson's voice continued over the image. "Your weapons cannot fire. Your shields cannot activate. Every piece of military technology you possess is now under human control." The view changed again, this time showing a massive space station orbiting a red star. It was Haven Station, supposedly a neutral trading post where different species could meet and do business safely. The station looked peaceful, with ships from many worlds docked at its ports. But as the camera moved closer, something became clear. All the ships at Haven Station were human vessels. They had been disguised to look like alien ships, but now their true forms were revealed. Sleek warships painted to look like cargo haulers, battle cruisers hidden inside the shells of passenger liners, fighter squadrons that had pretended to be maintenance craft. Haven Station has served as our primary staging area for the past 30 years, President Johnson explained. Every human who claimed to be a merchant, a tourist, or a refugee was actually a member of our military forces. In the Crystal Hall, Admiral Carter smiled as she watched the aliens' faces. She had helped design the Haven Station operation 25 years ago, when she was just a young lieutenant. The idea had been simple: create a place where humans could gather in large numbers without making the aliens suspicious. Commander Rachel Stone appeared on the screen, standing on the bridge of Haven Station. She was a tall woman with black hair and brown eyes, wearing the dark blue uniform of the Earth Space Navy. For 15 years, the aliens had known her as the station manager who made sure everyone followed the trading rules. "This is Commander Stone," she said into the camera. "All human forces are in position. Operation Checkmate is proceeding as planned." The view changed once more, this time showing dozens of different planets across the galaxy. On each world, the same scene was playing out. Humans who had been living quiet lives as workers, teachers, doctors, and engineers were revealing their true identities. On the mining world of Kepler-7, General Ryan Mitchell stood in the main control room surrounded by machines that processed rare metals. For 8 years, he had fixed broken equipment and supervised mining operations. The aliens had paid him a small salary and treated him like a simple laborer. Now Ryan wore his real uniform with the stars of a general on his shoulders. Around him, other humans were also changing into military clothes. Men and women who had spent years pretending to be ordinary workers were actually some of Earth's most skilled soldiers and scientists. "Kepler-7 to Earth Command," Ryan spoke into his radio. "All mining operations have been shut down. Without our processing facilities, the aliens won't be able to produce weapons, ships, or advanced technology. The rare metals that came from Kepler-7 were essential for building everything from computers to starship engines." Ryan and his team had been secretly controlling the entire operation for almost a decade. They had been careful to keep production levels steady so the aliens wouldn't realize who was really in charge. On the agricultural world of Green Valley, Captain Nancy White was walking through fields of crops that were dying before her eyes. She carried a small device that looked like a simple farming tool, but it was actually a biological control system. Nancy had spent 10 years developing new types of plants that could grow faster and produce more food than anything the aliens had seen before. The grateful aliens had allowed her to plant these improved crops on 12 different worlds. They thought the increased food production was just the result of human farming skills. The truth was that every seed Nancy had planted contained genetic modifications that made the plants dependent on special nutrients that only humans could provide. Without those nutrients, the crops would wither and die within days. Green Valley to Earth Command, Nancy spoke into her communicator. Food production across 12 systems has been terminated. The aliens will need to start rationing their remaining supplies immediately. In the Crystal Hall, the alien representatives were beginning to understand the full scope of what had happened to them. They had not just lost a battle. They had discovered that their entire civilization had been quietly taken over by the species they had tried to destroy. Jake Morrison walked to the center of the room and looked around at all the frightened alien faces. He felt sorry for them, but he also felt proud of what his people had accomplished. Humanity had faced the threat of extinction and had responded not with violence but with patience, planning, and incredible skill. "You're probably wondering how we did this," Jake said. "The answer is simple. We learned from you." He pointed to Zekthara, whose forearms were now shaking with fear instead of anger. "The Vorthon Empire taught us about long-term strategic planning. You showed us how to think in terms of decades instead of years." Jake gestured toward the insect-like Zephyrians. "The Zephyrian Collective taught us about working together as a unified group. You showed us how individual actions could serve a larger purpose." He looked at the crystal beings of the Zarian Assembly. "The Zarians taught us about patience and careful observation. You showed us how to wait for the right moment to act." Jake walked slowly around the room as he continued speaking. "Every species in this galaxy contributed something to our education. You all thought you were teaching primitive humans how to be civilized. What you were actually doing was giving us the tools we needed to defeat you." The large display screen activated again, this time showing a view of Earth from space. The blue and green planet looked peaceful and beautiful, with white clouds swirling through its atmosphere. But as the camera moved closer, it became clear that Earth was heavily defended. Space stations that had looked like scientific research facilities were actually military bases. Asteroid mining operations were revealed to be weapons platforms. Cargo ships traveling between planets were shown to be carrying soldiers and military equipment instead of trade goods. "For 50 years, President Johnson's voice narrated over the images, humanity has been preparing for this day. We knew that eventually, some of you would decide we were a threat that needed to be eliminated. We made sure we would be ready." The eye view changed to show Luna Base, humanity's first permanent settlement beyond Earth. What the aliens had always seen as a simple mining operation was actually the largest military complex in the solar system. Underground factories had been producing ships and weapons for decades. Training facilities had been preparing soldiers for combat in every possible environment. General Ben Rodriguez appeared on the screen, standing in the main command center of Luna Base. Behind him, walls of computers and display screens showed the positions of every human ship and station in the galaxy. "This is General Rodriguez at Luna Base Command," he said. "All human forces are now in position. We have complete control of galactic infrastructure. Enemy fleets are neutralized. Military and civilian leadership is in our custody." Rodriguez paused and looked directly into the camera. "The war the Galactic Council declared against humanity is over. We won." In the Crystal Hall, the alien representatives sat in stunned silence. Some were crying, though their tears looked different from human tears. The floating ones had stopped bubbling. The mechanical-legged ones had stopped clicking around. Even the rainbow-colored ones had faded to a dull gray. Zekthara finally found his voice. "What do you want from us?" he whispered. Jake Morrison looked at the defeated alien leader with something that might have been sympathy. "We want what we've always wanted," he said. "We want to live in peace. We want to be treated as equals. We want to work together to make the galaxy a better place for everyone." He gestured toward the screen, which now showed images of humans and aliens working side by side on various projects. "The difference is that now you don't have a choice in the matter. You declared war on us, and we won. The galaxy is under human control now." Jake's voice became firmer. "But we're not like you. We're not interested in conquest for its own sake. We don't want to rule over you just to prove we can. We want partners, not slaves." 3 days had passed since the surrender in the Crystal Hall. The galaxy was very quiet now, Ships that had carried goods between the stars sat empty at their docking ports. Communication networks that had buzzed with constant chatter showed only emergency messages. Worlds that had been busy with trade and politics waited nervously for news from their new human rulers. On the planet Vorthon Prime, Zekthara sat alone in his empty palace. The building that had once been filled with advisors and servants was now guarded by human soldiers. They were polite and respectful, but they made it clear that Zekthara was no longer in charge of his own world. A human woman named Lieutenant Colonel Tony Garcia walked into the throne room. She was small and young-looking, with short brown hair and friendly eyes. Zekthara remembered her from the old days when she had worked as a simple merchant, buying and selling goods between human and Vorthon worlds. Former Emperor Zekthara, Tony said, using the title that reminded him his reign was over. I've come to discuss the transition process. Zekthara's forearms drooped with sadness. What is there to discuss? You have taken everything from us. Tony pulled up a chair and sat down across from the former emperor. Actually, we haven't taken anything. Your people are still alive. Your cities are still standing. Your culture is still intact. The only thing that's changed is who makes the big decisions. She opened a folder and spread some papers on the table between them. These are the new administrative guidelines for the Vorthon territories. You'll notice that most of your local laws and customs remain unchanged. Zekthara picked up one of the papers with two of his arms while the other two gestured dismissively. Local laws mean nothing if we have no real power. That's where you're wrong, Tony said. We need local administrators who understand their own people. We need leaders who can help make the transition smooth and peaceful. We're offering you the chance to be the planetary governor of Vorthon Prime. The former emperor's purple eyes flickered with surprise. You would trust me with such a position? After I declared war on your species? Tony smiled. You declared war because you thought we were a threat to your way of life. Now you know we're not interested in destroying what you've built. We just want to make sure everyone plays by the same rules. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place on dozens of worlds. Human administrators were meeting with former alien leaders, explaining the new system and offering them roles in the government that would replace the old Galactic Council. On the water world of Aquatica, Dr. Ashley King was talking to the Aquatic Union's former prime minister. The alien looked like a giant jellyfish with dozens of tentacles and a brain that glowed softly in the darkness of the deep ocean. Your people have always been excellent at underwater construction, Ashley said, through a translation device that turned her words into the light patterns the aquatic aliens used for communication. We need your expertise to build new research stations on water worlds throughout the galaxy. The jellyfish-like alien flashed a pattern of confused colors. You would trust us to build installations that could be used against you? Ashley shook her head. We're not building weapons. We're building laboratories to study ocean life and develop new ways to produce food and medicine from sea creatures. Your people know more about underwater environments than any other species. We need that knowledge. On the crystal world of Xerion, Commander Rachel Stone was meeting with the Silicon Confederation's former Council of Elders. The aliens looked like living gemstones that had learned to walk and think. They communicated by changing the colors and patterns that flowed through their crystalline bodies. Your people are the galaxy's experts on mineral processing and quantum computing, Rachel explained. We want to establish new research partnerships that will benefit everyone. One of the crystal beings flashed a pattern of skeptical orange and red colors. And if we refuse to cooperate? Rachel's expression remained calm and friendly. Then you can live peacefully on your homeworld and have no contact with the rest of the galaxy. But you'll miss out on the chance to learn about human technology and share your knowledge with other species. She gestured toward a screen that showed images of human and alien scientists working together in laboratories. We've already started joint research projects with several species. The results have been remarkable. Back on Earth, President Mary Johnson was meeting with her top advisors in the Situation Room beneath the White House. The room was filled with generals, admirals, scientists, and diplomats who had been planning this operation for decades. Status report, the president said as she took her seat at the head of the long table. General Rodriguez stood up and activated a large display screen. All major alien military forces have been neutralized. We have administrative control of 847 star systems. Local resistance has been minimal. Admiral Carter added her own report. Our intelligence teams have cataloged the locations of all alien research facilities, weapons stockpiles, and strategic resources. Everything is accounted for. Dr. Nathan Cross, the head of the Scientific Advisory Board, spoke next. We've begun the process of integrating alien and human technologies. The potential for advancement is extraordinary. President Johnson nodded with satisfaction. What about the refugee situation? A woman named Senator Patricia Lewis stood up. She was tall and elegant, with gray hair and sharp blue eyes. For 20 years, she had served as Earth's chief diplomatic representative to the galaxy, always appearing to be humble and grateful for any attention the aliens gave humanity. We have approximately 2.3 million humans living on alien worlds who are pretending to be ordinary civilians, Patricia reported. Most of them are choosing to reveal their true identities and take positions in the new administration. She pulled up another screen showing statistics and numbers. However, about 400,000 have requested to return to Earth or human colonies. They've completed their missions and want to retire from active service. President Johnson considered this information. Make sure they get full honors for their service. These people spent decades living double lives for the good of humanity. They deserve recognition and comfortable retirements. Dr. Cross leaned forward in his chair. Madam President, we need to discuss the ethical implications of what we've done. Some of our people are having difficulty adjusting to the sudden shift from secret agents to public administrators. The president looked thoughtful. What kind of difficulties? Guilt, mainly, Dr. Cross replied. Many of our operatives developed genuine friendships with the aliens they were supposed to be spying on. They're struggling with the feeling that they betrayed people who trusted them, Admiral Carter spoke up. We expected this. That's why we included psychological support teams in the transition plan. President Johnson nodded. Make sure everyone gets the help they need. What we did was necessary, but that doesn't make it easy. On the trading station Deep Watch, Lisa Parker was experiencing exactly the kind of emotional conflict Dr. Cross had described. For 15 years, she had worked alongside alien traders and merchants. She had shared meals with them, celebrated their holidays, and even attended their children's naming ceremonies. Now she sat in her new office as the sector administrator for 12 star systems, trying to write reports about people she had come to consider friends. On her desk was a framed picture of herself at a Vorthan cultural festival, laughing with alien colleagues who had no idea she was secretly recording everything they said. Her assistant, a young man named Kevin Brooks who had also been living undercover as a factory worker, knocked on her office door. Commander Parker, Kevin said, we're receiving requests from several alien governments asking about the possibility of cultural exchange programs. Lisa looked up from her paperwork. What kind of exchange programs? Educational mainly, Kevin explained. They want to send their young people to study at human universities, and they're offering to accept human students at their institutions. Lisa smiled for the first time in days. That's actually a wonderful idea. Approve the requests and start setting up the programs. Real cultural exchange this time, not spying operations. Kevin hesitated at the door. Commander, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think we did the right thing? All the deception and manipulation? Lisa was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question that had been troubling her for days. I think we did what we had to do to survive, she finally said. The aliens would have destroyed us if we hadn't been prepared. But now that the war is over, we have a chance to build something better. She looked out the window at the stars beyond the station. The galaxy is full of different species with different strengths and different knowledge. If we can learn to work together instead of fighting each other, we might accomplish things that none of us could do alone. Kevin nodded and left the office, feeling a little better about the future. Throughout the galaxy, humans and aliens were beginning the slow process of learning to trust each other again. It would take time to heal the wounds caused by decades of deception and the shock of humanity's sudden rise to power. But for the first time in galactic history, every species was being offered an equal voice in how their civilization would develop. 6 months had passed since the day the Galactic Council declared war on humanity. The Crystal Hall looked very different now. The same 47 alien species sat in their special seats, but the fear and anger in their eyes had been replaced by something that looked almost like hope. Jake Morrison stood at the central podium where Zekthara had once declared humanity's destruction. He wore his dress uniform with new insignia that marked him as the first human ambassador to the reformed Galactic Council. The title was long, but the job was simple: help different species learn to work together as equals. 6 months ago, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the huge room, you declared war on humanity because you thought we were a threat to galactic peace. Today, I want to talk about what we've accomplished together since then. He gestured toward a large display screen that showed images from across the galaxy. The first image was of Vorthon Prime, where human and Vorthon engineers were working side by side to build new water purification systems. The technology combined human efficiency with Vorthon artistic design, creating machines that were both beautiful and practical. Former Emperor Zekthara is now Governor Zekthara of Vorthon Prime, Jake explained. His people are no longer subjects of an empire. They are citizens of a democratic government that gives them a voice in how their world is run. In the audience, Zekthara nodded his large head. His forearms moved in a gesture that meant agreement and satisfaction in Vorthon culture. The past 6 months had been difficult for him, but he had discovered something surprising. He enjoyed solving problems more than he had enjoyed giving orders. The screen changed to show the water world of Aquatica, where human and aquatic alien scientists were studying new forms of sea life that could be used to produce medicine. Dr. Ashley King appeared in the image, wearing a special diving suit that allowed her to work underwater alongside her jellyfish-like colleagues. The Aquatic Union has shared their knowledge of ocean ecosystems with human researchers, Jake continued. In return, we've provided them with new technologies that will help them explore the deepest parts of their world's oceans. The display changed again, this time showing the crystal world of Xerion. Commander Rachel Stone stood next to a group of living gemstone aliens in front of a massive quantum computer that sparkled with rainbow colors. The machine was 10 times more powerful than anything either species had built alone. The Silicon Confederation's expertise in crystal technology has been combined with human computer science, Jake explained. Together, we've created calculation systems that will help us solve problems we never could have tackled before. Admiral Susan Carter sat in the front row of the council chamber, watching Jake with pride. She had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense, a new position that gave her authority over the combined fleets of all species. It was a job that would have been impossible under the old system, where each species insisted on keeping their own separate military forces. Next to her sat General Ben Rodriguez, who now served as Director of Galactic Infrastructure. His job was to make sure that transportation, communication, and trade systems worked smoothly across thousands of worlds. It was complicated work, but he had the help of experts from dozens of different species. The new galactic government is based on a simple principle, Jake said from the podium. Every species gets an equal voice regardless of how long they've been traveling between the stars or how many worlds they control. He pointed to a section of the chamber where several small alien species sat together. Under the old system, these groups had been ignored because they were too weak to defend themselves. Now they served on important committees and their opinions carried the same weight as those of the former galactic powers. The Twilight Dwellers from the dark side of Proxima B are now our leading experts on energy conservation, Jake explained. Their knowledge of how to survive with very little light has helped us develop new power systems for space stations and deep space exploration. The screen showed images of tiny aliens who looked like walking shadows, working alongside human engineers in laboratories that glowed with soft blue light. Their unique understanding of darkness and energy had led to breakthroughs that amazed everyone involved. The moss people of the forest world Greenland have taught us new ways to grow food in environments where nothing should be able to survive, Jake continued. Their techniques are now being used to establish farms on worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. President Mary Johnson appeared on the screen, speaking from her office in the White House. But she was no longer just the president of Earth. She had been elected as the first president of the United Galactic Federation, a new government that represented every known intelligent species. My fellow citizens of the galaxy, President Johnson said, 6 months ago we were on the edge of a war that could have destroyed everything we had built among the stars. Instead, we discovered something wonderful. We are stronger together than any of us ever were alone. Behind her, the flag of the United Galactic Federation hung on the wall. It showed a circle of stars representing all the member species, with Earth's sun at the center, not because humans were in charge, but because Earth was where the idea of galactic unity had first been tested and proven to work. In the Crystal Hall, Jake returned to his speech. The old Galactic Council was based on fear, he said. Strong species dominated weak ones. Old civilizations looked down on new ones. Everyone was so busy protecting what they had that nobody thought about what they could accomplish together. He gestured around the room at all the alien faces. The new Federation is based on cooperation. We share our knowledge, our resources, and our dreams. We help each other solve problems instead of creating new ones. The display screen changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Green dots marked the locations of human colonies, but they were mixed in with blue dots for Vorthan worlds, red dots for Kethmori territories, and dozens of other colors representing different species. Under the old system, each species claimed exclusive control over certain regions of space, Jake explained. Under the new system, any species can establish colonies anywhere, as long as they follow Federation laws and respect the rights of their neighbors. Admiral Carter stood up and walked to a second podium. As Supreme Commander, she had been asked to give a report on galactic security. 6 months ago, this galaxy was divided into dozens of separate military forces that spent most of their time preparing to fight each other, she said. Today we have a unified galactic defense force that protects everyone equally. The screen showed images of mixed-species crews working together on starships. Human captains served under alien admirals. Alien engineers maintained ships designed by human scientists. Species that had been enemies for centuries now trusted each other with their lives. The greatest threat to galactic peace is no longer war between species, Admiral Carter continued. It's the possibility that we might discover hostile aliens from outside our galaxy. If that day comes, we'll be ready to defend our civilization together. General Rodriguez took his turn at the podium next. The new transportation and communication networks connect every inhabited world in the galaxy, he reported. A message sent from Earth can reach the farthest Vorthan colony in less than 6 hours. A cargo ship can travel from any world to any other world in less than 30 days. He smiled as he looked around the room. More importantly, any citizen of any species can now travel freely throughout Federation space. We're seeing cultural exchanges that would have been impossible under the old system. The screen showed images of alien students attending universities on Earth, human children learning traditional Vorthan art forms, and mixed species families that had formed through marriage and adoption. Jake returned to the central podium for his closing remarks. 6 months ago, you asked if humanity was ready for war, he said. Today, I want to ask a different question. Are we ready for peace? He looked around the Crystal Hall at all the representatives of different species. Because peace is harder than war. War just requires us to destroy our enemies. Peace requires us to understand them, to work with them, to build something together that's better than anything we could create alone. Jake's voice became stronger and more confident. The answer to your original question was yes, we were ready for war. We had prepared for 50 years to defend ourselves if necessary. But the answer to my question is also yes. We are ready for peace. We are ready to be citizens of the galaxy instead of conquerors of it. The alien representatives began to make the sounds and gestures that their species used to show approval. The clicking, humming, bubbling, and color-changing filled the Crystal Hall with a symphony of different voices all saying the same thing. They agreed. Zekthara stood up slowly, his forearms moving in the formal gesture that Vorthans used to show great respect. Ambassador Morrison, he said, 6 months ago, my people declared war on yours because we thought you were too dangerous to be allowed to grow strong. His purple eyes glowed brightly as he continued. We were right about one thing. Humanity is dangerous. You are dangerous to ignorance, dangerous to hatred, and dangerous to the idea that some species are better than others.